In football, you say if Real Madrid calls you once, you can't say no.
Although he's only 43, how many chances do you have to take over Real Madrid where they are now?
A few weeks back, Carlos said it was a 50-50 chance whether he stays or he goes. Has that shifted now? Is it 60-40, 70-30, 80-20?
There was one particular game that changed all the scene dramatically. It was Arsenal winning 3-0 against Real Madrid. He's a bit in a dilemma. His dream is to become Real Madrid's coach, but he's like, a prisoner of his own dream, because there is only one person who can start this domino effect, and this is Florentino Perez.
Xabi Alonso will be the Bayern Leverkusen next season.
No.
Florian Wirtz will stay in Leverkusen.
Maybe. Sorry.
Hi and welcome to the Fussball channel. I'm your host Markus Fjortoft, and as always joined by co-host Jan Fjortoft, and we have a very special guest on the show today. Phillip Arens, a very well-respected journalist and very closely dialed in on Bayer Leverkusen as well, and there's no secret as to what we will be discussing. First off, Phillip, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor to be on with you.
It's a pleasure. And before we go into Alonso and all that will follow, we're talking the day after Bayern secured the title. It was inevitable, but nonetheless, it happened after Freiburg drew against Bayer Leverkusen. A late comeback nonetheless, but wasn't enough. What's the general mood around Bayer Leverkusen after Bayern regained their Bundesliga title in a way?
First of all, they sent their congrats to Bayern Munich directly after the final whistle, as it did Xabi Alonso, as it did Granit Xhaka. But of course, it was no surprise that they were not winning the championship again, because I think after the game against Union Berlin 3 weeks ago, when they had the chance to come a bit closer, they draw again 0-0. It was clear that the distance was too long. Even Bayern struggled sometimes, but Leverkusen struggled more often than Bayern did. They only lost 2 games, both. But Leverkusen had 11 draws, and this is quite too much to compete. And so they will be Vizekusen again. But in this year, it's also a good achievement. They can still gain the second best Bundesliga season of their history, but they have to win the last 2 games. So it was no surprise that it happened yesterday. Maybe a bit consolation that they made Leverkusen things again with the late draw in the 3rd minute of the injury time, and so they still have the chance to get a Bundesliga record. If they don't lose in Mainz, they will be the first ever Bundesliga team to be unbeaten away for 2 whole seasons, 34 games, which is a marvelous record, but it's just a bit of a consolation. So the goal is to win the last 2 games, but I mentioned it yesterday in our podcast Stammplatz, that to my mind it was the worst performance in the last 2 years of Bayer Leverkusen for at least 80 minutes. They came back and 10 minutes before the game, before the end. So, but before it was a very, very poor performance. On the other hand, it was a very good performance by Freiburg.
That anything?
No, just say I think that Philip, thanks for being on and getting our analysis from the sources in Leverkusen. And I think it's a valid point that Leverkusen, in terms of points, can get a great season. I think that after the season and by the topics we're gonna talk about now, you have to ask yourself, how much did that influence? How much did Bayern's kind of comeback that would destined to be them winning the Meisterschale as well? And I said to another podcast, another episode we talked about, Markus, I said that Leverkusen had some had some set balls, if we take that out to tennis, but they never had a match ball somehow. And I think it's more exciting now to look forward what will happen at Leverkusen, Markus.
Yeah, exactly. And, with this whole management situation, obviously it would be very difficult, a near impossible task to replicate what was done last season. I guess that requires its own separate analysis as to what happened last season, more so in terms of how the key players stepped up. It was a brilliant transfer window. It was always going to be tough, but historic in its own sense. But we have someone like Xabi Alonso, who, yes, it was a good squad he inherited, but they were 17th in the league. He had limited managerial experience coming from Real Sociedad B. Came in, respectable sixth place finish, reached the Europa League semi-final, and then was that historic final or season that followed. Phillip, I would be curious, following them as closely as you have, how would you describe Alonso's development as a coach from coming back to that 17th place struggling team under Seoane to now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I remember when we were there with Leverkusen, the Champions League in Porto, when they lost 0-2, when the first report by ESPN came along just before the kickoff that Xabi Alonso will be the new coach of Bayer Leverkusen. So we flew back from Portugal with Seoane still on the plane. And after the return to Leverkusen, he was sacked. And I wrote a comment on the morning after the game in Porto, and I said the idea of bringing Xabi Alonso to the Bundesliga has charm, but it's also a bit of a risk, because he wasn't a head coach in a first in a club, in a first division team. So of course, at Leverkusen, after this very good year with Seoane, Jan, you have been to Leverkusen quite a lot of times in this year when they finished third. And so they were really in relegation problems. So he took over on position 17. And after this, he lost 1-5 to Eintracht Frankfurt away after 1 week. And everybody was thinking, this is going to be a very, very tough situation with a new coach, unexperienced on the bench, with a team totally mentally down. But then he changed the mind of the team. He said, okay, come on, we can't always play offensive. We have to close our borders, our goals. And so step by step, they came out of this very dangerous situation, and they finished in sixth position. They reached the Europa League semi-finals. And yeah, it was the beginning of this miracle in what happened in Leverkusen. And of course, the last year was something outstanding, which will never be possible for me. They had 53 matches, losing only one. Unfortunately, it was the final of the Europa League. But even reaching a European final, winning 2 titles, the domestic double for the first time after 31 years without a title, was unbelievable. Even winning the Super Cup. Of course, the value of this trophy is not that big, but it's also a silverware in your club you have. So from the beginning of the season, they had 11 players in the Euro 24. They had to end the Copa America. So a lot of players didn't have season preparation. They started directly with the first competitive game. So there was no real break, no real pause they had. So it was quite difficult. And they started winning the Super Cup. Even Mönchengladbach was a very tough game. Then they lost. They were winning it in the 11th minute of the injury time. But then again, Leipzig, they were leading 2-0 and conceded a goal 1 minute before halftime. And this is something what Granit Xhaka also mentioned yesterday, after the game in Freiburg. They said, I think he said it was about 15 goals. I don't know it's that much, but it felt for him like 15 goals. They conceded seconds before the halftime break. Mm-hmm. So this is something you can't always come along with. And this is something that the lack of concentration and some 1%, 2% were missing. And this is what made Leverkusen so good last year. And this is something they missed in this year. So they lost points against Holstein Kiel when they were leading 2-0. They were 1-0 up in Bochum, conceded a goal on the last second. So you can count all these points and you see the difference between Bayern Munich and Leverkusen in this year. So it's a bit all of that. And of course, to my mind, of course, Xabi Alonso in the championship year, everything he made was like gold, turned to gold.
Yeah,
he put in a new joker, a striker. Anything he made went good. Mm-hmm. But also in this year, he made some mistakes. Maybe we could talk about it later. But maybe the crucial moment of the season was playing Bayern Munich in the round of 16 in the Champions League. After winning 4-1 in Frankfurt, which was for me the best performance they had in this season. Winning 4-1 in Frankfurt was even better than the 5-1 against Freiburg. 4-1 in Freiburg. No other team played so good and so dominant in Frankfurt in this year like Bayer Leverkusen did. And 4 days later, they were already favorites against Bayern Munich. They never had been favorites against Bayern Munich, but they got Bayern Munich maybe on the best day they had in all the season, and Leverkusen maybe on the worst day. And also Alonso made some mistakes in this game. And this is something, I think this 0-3 defeat against Bayern Munich 3 days later, they lost 0-2 against Werder Bremen. It made something with this team. And the consequence was also losing out to in the cup semi-final against Bielefeld. The season would be very good if they would have reached the German Cup final again, but losing out against the third division team is really something that still hurts here everybody in this club. And it's also the chance of winning a trophy again has never been so good with this draw against Bielefeld. So there were a lot of small points, making it a bit more complicated.
I think before we go to the future of Xabi Alonso and the future of Florian Wirtz, I think it's important to. I always, when I talk about coaches, I talk about coaches and leaders. And you made a good analysis from where he came. He came with no experience, but he came with an experience to be a leader. And I think that is also the biggest compliment you can get to Vincent Kompany this season, is that he has been a leader. It's not easy to be a Bayer coach. There's nothing been any trouble there. He's kind of steadied the ship into the championship, which is a big compliment to him, as it is for Xabi Alonso in those times when the goings get tough. And of course, we know the history of Leverkusen. I follow Leverkusen since the 70s. I've seen so many great coaches being there, not fulfill the potential, always great talents. You had the coaches, you had Kalmund, you had the best from East Germany, you had the best from South America. There were so many things, but Xabi Alonso came there together with Caro and Simon Rolfes, and the club has been solid. And I think that Philip, you said it right there. If they could go to the final and win that final, that's been an okay season. But Markus, I guess you will go to the future now, won't you?
Yeah, well, we are impatient to know, aren't we, in terms of where we will lead, and because it has been monumental in terms of the impact he has had. The latest we know, Philip, is obviously at a few weeks back, Caro said it was a 50-50 chance whether he stays or he goes. Has that shifted now? Is it 60-40, 70-30, 80-20? Will he be leaving? What are the factors in play at this moment, and why are we still waiting?
Yeah, we can compare it like a chewing gum farewell.
Right.
I think there was one particular game that changed all the scene dramatically. It was Arsenal winning 3-0 against Real Madrid. Because this it was also a shock in Leverkusen, because everybody from 4 weeks ago, nobody considered that Xabi Alonso would leave.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
so it was
the rumors were still there, but Real Madrid is doing Real Madrid things if they want. They also sacked Jupp Heynckes after winning the Champions League in '98.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Carlo Ancelotti, if we had won the Champions League, I think he would be there also the next year. But losing out in the quarterfinals in the Champions League is not comparable for Real Madrid. And the way they lost out against Arsenal was, of course, a big hit for Real Madrid. Mm-hmm. And of course, from this moment on, I can remember it was after the last international break at the end of March. Everybody expected in Leverkusen that Xabi Alonso would announce that he would stay one more year, like he did last year after the international break. It was nearly the same date at the end of March. And he said this time, there is nothing to decide yet. Last year, I had to decide something because he had the offers from Bayern Munich and the offers from Liverpool. Also, in the summer before, there was PSG trying to get him. Mm-hmm. But and then he said last year, my journey here is not finished. So he wanted to win the championship, going with Leverkusen into the Champions League. But, in football, you say if Real Madrid calls you once, you can't say no. Mm-hmm. But, and I don't get it. Why? He's just 43 years old. They can call him next year or in 2 years, and he would also then he would be a good coach. So I think, and of course, in every press conference, when we meet Xabi, there were 5, 6, 7, 8 questions, and he can't answer. He's doing it dribbling around and says, "We will see." Yesterday, he said, "I don't have an idea when there was something to say," because I think for me, he's a bit in a dilemma. His dream is to become Real Madrid's coach, but he's like, a prisoner of his own dream, because there is only one person who can start this domino effect, and this is Florentino Perez. Mm-hmm. He will tell the moment when Ancelotti is sacked, and then they can bring Alonso as a new coach, with everybody now expecting here. But, Ancelotti said on Saturday in the press conference that he will decide his future not before the end of the season, and this is in 3 weeks. So this is for Leverkusen a very, very strange situation. And you can also see it on the pitch. The players feel that there is something changing. Everybody's talking about, but nobody has a confirmation that it will come. And this is also what Granit Xhaka yesterday said. There's no alibi for that they didn't play well in the last weeks. But he said, of course, every player wants to know who will be the next coach in the next season on the sideline. But he said, it was a very good sentence. And he said, every team would like to have a coach like Xabi Alonso. We had him 2 years, but we don't know if we have him for a third year. And if it will come like this, we had a wonderful time. And it seems these were some farewell words, because he also knows what happens.
Sorry, but on that note, where does this leave the Leverkusen squad? Is it a matter of if Xabi Alonso leaves, there will be a lot of turnover in terms of the players that are there? I'm thinking a Frimpong might leave, or Grimaldo, or a Ta who's destined to leave, Hincapié, whatever. Obviously that will impact Rolfe's and Caro's decision as well, because you have players there depending on whether Alonso leaves. Is that fair?
Of course, the turnover will be greater if Alonso will stay. Of course, there are a lot of unsatisfied players in this moment, like Jonas Hofmann and even Robert Andrich as a German international. And of course, if Alonso would stay, which I don't believe, they would check their options for a new club. Of course, a lot of players will leave if Alonso, or would like to leave if Alonso will go to Real Madrid. Grimaldo made some interviews in Spanish media. It's something like putting himself into the shopping window. Take me with you. And because he always said, my dream is to play in Spain, but he is under contract. Frimpong has a buyout clause, which is known for 40 million euros. But Simon Rolfes yesterday said before the game, we have a very good situation with all the players. A lot of players, nearly almost the players, have contracts running until 2028. So like Hincapie, you mentioned, he's under contract until 2029. He just he signed his new contract right before Christmas. So this will be a player when somebody comes, around 70 million euros, and he is worth it. Of course, Florian Wirtz, they tried to give him a new contract. His contract is running 2 more years. The idea was to put in a buyout clause, which would have been next year about 125 or 130 or something like this. But he hasn't signed the contract yet. And Leverkusen's point of view is, if he doesn't sign, we have to sell him now. Because in the next year, if he would, maybe this is his idea, I don't know, 1 more year in Leverkusen would be fine for me to play regularly, to go to the World Cup as a player who always plays. But then he would be around 100 million. Now Leverkusen, in Leverkusen's eyes, he is worth about 150 million euros. And next year, of course, he would have been, the price would decrease. This is normal.
But it's interesting. First of all, it's very interesting to listen to the inside of those different things, Philip. I will try to go into Alonso's mind. I haven't won enough championship to Champions trophies to do that, but I'll try to go into his mind why he's so in doubt what to do now. Yeah, Philip, you're right. He could wait for a call. He can get that in 2 years, in 3 years. Yes, you can. But it's also the biggest jobs in the world. They are not very often available. Because you can have, look at Liverpool. I use Liverpool as an example. Yes, Xabi Alonso was a candidate there as well. They got Arne Slot in. Arne Slot came from Feyenoord. He has taken Liverpool with storm. He has won the Premier League 2 times in over 30 years. Very popular now, and he will stay on now for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So when new managers get the chance to get into an era, like Zinedine Zidane got, he was inexperienced as well. Yes, he trained a Real Madrid B team, but he came in and winning. So that will take time. And that is the main thing in terms of timing, because you have the time, you can come to Real Madrid, Alonso, and you can think, well, it can't get worse now. I agree with Philip. That 3-0, that killed them off. That against Arsenal. You can see now that Real Madrid, if they're not careful now, they're turning into a mini PSG when they had the trouble with just individuals and not a football team. So it could be a great team for a legend to come in. And as I am very interested in history, I know the courts around the palaces and around the kings. There is another prince, a prince of Spain called Raúl, who is somewhere in and around there. Imagine he gets the chance and start of that. So I do understand Xabi Alonso's doubt of that. And although he's only 43, how many chances do you have to take over Real Madrid where they are now? And that is a risky business anyway. And you will go into Real Madrid and you think, I'll be fired anyway, because everybody gets fired in this club. Even Ancelotti, a legend there, could be fired because they're bad this season. So I do understand that he's in doubt. Yes, he got more time because he is a manager that can go on for many years. I also see him as a natural candidate the day Pep Guardiola will leave his job at Manchester City. He could go there after Slot, but it's all about timing, I guess.
Yes, but as I mentioned, Perez is the one who is in the driver's seat in this case, and he admires Xabi Alonso. He admired him as a player. You know, he brought him to Madrid from Liverpool in 2009, and when he became Real Madrid's president for the second time, and he followed his way. He did in Leverkusen from the first day. And I remember when Leverkusen reached semifinals 2 years ago against Roma, there were the first rumors and speculations that he might be the follower of Ancelotti, even in 2023. And those rumors were still always there. But it really would be now for the first time that there will be an official offer. And of course, Xabi Alonso knows what is going on there in Madrid, but he always, I followed his way from the first day he came, and he always acted calmly, yeah. And this is also what, of course, I can imagine that this is a very strange situation for him, that he also wants to tell his club, who gave him the chance to become a head coach in the Bundesliga. Mm-hmm. And this, we mentioned it, in this very dangerous situation. And he, of course, he's grateful for this. He never will forget this. But this is what he says: I can't tell it because I'm not allowed. This is the same with Ancelotti. Ancelotti knows if he would go into the public and tell, Real Madrid was upset that he met with the Brazilian FA in London. It was, I think, last week. So because this is, of course, a big poker. He is under contract, and maybe Real Madrid doesn't want to give him any money, but if they sack him, but he will would like to have around 4 million euros. So this is also part of a bit poker. At the end, I guess, it will be like this. Ancelotti will become the new Brazilian national coach, and Alonso will become the new coach of Real Madrid. And then it will be very interesting to see who will be here in Leverkusen next year.
Right.
And we can talk about this now if you want.
We've seen reports of Fabregas, Ten Hag, Raúl. There's a lot of different names out there. I guess, what have you heard, and what do you think might be the best fit for Bayer Leverkusen?
Raúl not. And I think this is our information now that Cesc Fabregas is a very, very good candidate for Leverkusen. The Leverkusen bosses were in Como last week to meet him, and in a hotel in Como. And of course, he's built like the rising star in European football. It's something a bit like Xabi Alonso, the first station as a head coach, bringing Como to a safe place in Serie A also the next year, and the small club Como. And of course, it will be. It would make sense because you have a Spanish CEO like with Fernando Caro here, a lot of Spaniards in the coaching staff, a lot of Spanish speaking or even Spanish players in the team, and the kind of play Leverkusen would like, offensive play, ball position play. So this makes sense to speak with Cesc Fabregas. Of course, he's under contract for 3 more years in Como. And as far as I heard from my colleagues in Italy, if he would leave, not to any Italian club, because he is also a shareholder of this club, and he loves Como. He is part of the story of the renaissance of Como. But for me, it makes sense. As I heard that there was no direct contact to Erik ten Hag, and Erik ten Hag was sacked in Old Trafford, and he's 55 years old, which is not an age for a coach. But Fabregas has turned 38 years yesterday. He is a rising coach, so this makes more sense for me. Putting a new, very young and ambitious coach to a team like Bayer Leverkusen instead of Erik ten Hag, who maybe has some problems with players who are already ready. And as far as we heard, that there were some problems the way he guides a team inside the dressing room. And also for this, Xavi is no topic in Leverkusen.
So I will end by saying that if you want to have an inside exclusive from Fabregas football philosophy, Markus went to Como, did a video of him, or a film for PFA, which was very interesting. And I agree with you. His football's brain is fantastic, and he is one of those. You just see that he has taken Como. Yes, Como has had some money to spend as well in Serie A, but still, he is one of the football brains. So Phillip, if I could first of all say thank you for being on, but I will have some sharp questions, and not like the Bayern Insider, true or not true. I will say to you yes or no, and we'll see if you can do that. Xabi Alonso will be the Bayern Leverkusen next season.
No.
Florian Wirtz will stay in Leverkusen.
Maybe. Sorry.
Yeah. Jonathan Tah will go to Real Madrid and not to Bayern.
Could be. I think the most important thing is if Barcelona could register him, he would go to Barcelona.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for being with us. And Markus, I took over your job there at the end because I wanted some sharpness in there to know where he's standing. And I do realize that this Florian Wirtz, that's going to be the most interesting story, because this week, and I just came from Manchester, I did Manchester City against Wolverhampton on Friday. People are talking about Florian Wirtz. People are talking about him being the kind of hope of like Marmoush. Marmoush has done well for them since he came, and Florian Wirtz is also high on the list of Manchester City, Markus.
Yeah, it'll be exciting, and maybe we're forcing Phillip into a corner here and say that he just has to come on for a second time for a little special
we
at some
need
point in the summer.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phillip. A pleasure as always. First time on the Fussball channel. We really appreciate it, and then we look forward to catching up soon again.
Auf Wiedersehen.